So let's look at our definition. So continuity, what would you all pick for continuity?
I chose H.
H, I agree. So continuity simply means that you can trace the graph without lifting the pencil. So if you can trace the graph from left to right and not pick up your pencil, that means it's continuous. All right, what about number 2?
Number two, D.
D is in dog. Thank you. All right, so if the graph is going down from left to right, then it is decreasing. All right, 3 is kind of tricky though.
B. I chose B.
I got 2 students, but I appreciate y'all though. I do.
Actually, no, I chose B.
And that's actually the right answer. So B is correct. So it's the direction at the extremes. So direction, because you could have matching or vocab on the test. So in behavior, direction, so is the graph going up or down? And extremes, another word for extremes would be your arrows, the end arrows. So you might want to write that down. Kind of annotate the definition so you'll know what they mean. Let's go ahead and lift our heads up off the desk. Let's not get comfy. Number 4, extrema.
Was it A?
A.
I got the 2 mixed up.
Number 5, increasing. E is in Edward. Yep. So that's when the graph goes up, left to right. Linearity. So is it linear? So how do we know if something is linear?
Is it I?
I. Yep. So is it a straight line or a curve? 7, negative. Definition of negative.
G.
Yep, because it's below the x-axis. And positive is above the x-axis. You all are doing really good. And the last one, y-intercept. C. All right, who got at least 7 of those right? Good job. All right, take out your reveal book. We're going to do some graphing today. Go to page 39 in your reveal book. Page 39 in your reveal. So I have not decided yet what I'm doing with bell work, so just hold on to them. Hold on to both of them. Hold on to both of those handouts. I may collect it all on test day. But don't. I haven't collected any bell work yet. So just hold on to them both. So you have 2 bell work handouts. Hold on to both of them. And then I'll collect them both at the same time. All right, so we're going to be on page 39, which is graphing a line. So page 39 in your reveal book. Graphing a line. You do need a calculator. So if there's not a calculator on your desk, there's probably one close by. Okay, so graphing a linear equation. There's 3 different ways to graph an equation. And the first way that we're going to talk about is graphing using a table. So we already know this is linear because the highest exponent is 1. Does everyone see that? Remember, the definition of a linear equation is that you have no other exponents other than 1. So that's the first step, is to determine if it's linear. So this is linear because this is x to the first and we have y to the first. So the second step is to solve the equation for y. Okay, so they didn't really show the steps, so I'm going to show the steps off to the side if you want to. So this is the equation. It says x plus 3y minus 6 equals 0. So I have to solve this for y. So in order to solve it for y, We added 6 to both sides, which is going to give me x plus 3y equals 6. And then what else did they do?
You gotta subtract 3.
So we have to subtract the x. So let's subtract x from both sides. So subtract x. Now these are not like terms. So it would be 3y equals negative x plus 6. And I'm at the bottom of the screen. Let me go ahead and write it at the top so that everybody can see it. So we have 3y equals negative x plus 6. And then the last step would be to divide everything by 3. Because 3 is being multiplied by y, we would have to divide it. Every single thing is divided by 3. So there's an invisible 1 right here. So the equation, so they didn't really show that, but your equation for y would be y equals, and then it would be negative 1/3. So negative 1/3 x plus, so I'm writing the equation here. So y equals negative 1/3 x plus, and then what is 6 divided by 3? 2. Good job. All right, so then if we're graphing using a table, you would just pick any values of x, any value of x that you would like, and substitute it into the equation. And this is what they're showing you right here. So the first number they substituted in was negative 6. So if you type in your calculator negative 1/3 times negative 6 plus 2, you should get 4. So feel free to verify that that's what you get. Now in those yellow calculators, there's a fraction button where it says n over d. That means numerator and denominator. So you can use that button. And you should get 4. And then the next number that Reveal chose was negative 3. So they substitute in a negative 3 right here. So negative 1/3 times negative 3 is 1. 1 plus 2 is 3. Now we have to figure out what these two numbers are. So go ahead and use your calculator, substitute in a 0 and substitute in a positive 3 to get your two y values. Don't say those out loud, just write them in your book. So when you substitute in a 0, so 0 times anything is 0. So you should have 0 plus 2. So who got 2 for this third number? Okay, good job. And now we're going to substitute in a positive 3. So take negative 1/3 times 3, which would be negative 1. Negative 1 plus 2. So make sure that's 1 because I'm doing that in my head. So sometimes my brain doesn't work well. And for the last one, Reveal chose 6. And the reason why they chose these 5 numbers is because they chose numbers that we could divide by 3. Because anytime you multiply by a fraction, that means that you could get a decimal. So they intentionally chose numbers that we wouldn't have a decimal. And then over here, they plotted these 5 points. Now notice that the x and y is scaled by 2. So negative 6 up to 4, put a point. Then negative 3, which would be in between negative 2 and negative 4. They went up to 3. At 0, they were at 2. At positive 3, they went up 1. And at 6, they put a point there, which would be 6, 0. And then you connect your points. All right, so let's do the same thing for this one here. So let's go ahead and do this check. So the first step, again, is to solve the equation for y. So let's do that check together. Let me go ahead and make myself some space. So we're going to take this equation, which is 6x plus 2y equals 10. And the first step we're going to do is solve it for y. So in order to solve for y, we want to start by subtracting that 6x. So we're going to subtract the 6x from both sides. So that would be 2y equals negative 6x plus 10. And then how do I get rid of that 2? Divide. Good. Divide every single number by 2. So this equation, written in slope-intercept form, is y equals negative 3x plus 5. So this is the equation. Same equation, but we just rearranged it. Now, Reveal chose these 4 numbers. Now, when you're doing your test, you can pick whatever numbers you want. But they already started it for us, so these are the numbers that they chose. So for x, you're going to substitute in your calculator these 4 numbers. So go ahead, use your calculator and type in negative 3 times negative 1 plus 5. And then you're going to do negative 3 times 0 plus 5. Negative 3 times 1 plus 5. Negative 3 times 3 plus 5. So go ahead, take your calculators and find these 4 numbers. And then we're going to graph them. So what did you get for the first number? 8. Then after 8, you should have. And after 5.
2.
And then for 3. Okay. So I'm going to count by 2s because they gave us a really small grid and I can't go all the way up to 8. So I have to count by 2s. So I'm just going to count x and y by 2. So negative 1 up to 8. So 2, 4, 6, 8. That would be about here. Then 0 up 5. So 2, 4, 5. And at 1, 2. And then at 3, 4. So something like this. And when you connect your points, you get a graph that looks similar to that. All right, so that's the first way to graph a line. We're going to talk about 3 different ways to graph a line. So the first way is to solve it for y, pick some x values, and make a table. The second way is to find your x and y intercepts. So I think we're still on page 39 though. At the bottom, maybe not. Let me see. Yeah. So looking at this one, the second way, for example 2, is using your intercepts. So to find your x-intercept, you substitute in a 0. So this is my equation, 3x minus 2y equals negative 12. So I'm going to substitute in a 0 for y, so that's why we have this blank. So it would be 3x minus 2, and instead of y, we are putting a 0 right there. And anytime you multiply by 0, it cancels out. So this whole thing just cancels out. So you're left with 3x equals negative 12. So how would you solve that for x? So if 3x equals negative 12, if you divide both sides by 3, yes, Chris? Yep, divide by 3, yep. And what would you get for your x? Would you say negative? Not 6. So 12 divided by 3 is 4, yep. So x equals negative 4. That would be my x-intercept. So this graph has an x-intercept at negative 4. And now let's find our y-intercept, which to find our y-intercept, then we let x equal 0. So using this equation, So 3x minus 2y equals negative 12. Let's put our 0 here, which is going to cancel that out. Yep. And then you're going to have negative 2y equals negative 12. Divide both sides by negative 2. So your y is equal to 6. Okay. So now let's go to page 40. So it says the x-intercept is negative 4, the y-intercept is 6. So how do you write the x-intercept as an ordered pair? So would that be 0, negative 4, or would it be negative 4, 0? All right, so negative 4, 0. And let's plot that point. So this one is big enough that I can count by 1, so I'm going to count by 1. You can count by whatever you want to, though. If it's not labeled, that means you get to choose. But I have enough space, so I'm going to just count by 1s. So that's my x-intercept. And my y-intercept is at 6. So would I write that as 6, 0 or 0, 6?
0, 6.
0, 6. Good job. So count up to 6 and then connect with a line. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then you would just draw a line that goes through both of those points. So that's the second way. And I think that way is pretty fast. Making a table, that kind of takes a little bit of time, but x and y intercepts, that goes pretty fast. So we're just trying to figure out where the graph crosses through the x-axis and the y-axis, and then we just draw a line. And the last method, example 3, is using slope-intercept form, which is y equals mx plus b. So y equals mx plus b is slope-intercept form. M is always the number in front of x, and b is the number that doesn't have an x. So the first thing you want to do is identify your slope and y-intercept. So the slope is positive 3 over 2, and your y-intercept is at negative 4. So let's write that y-intercept as an ordered pair. So the y-intercept b, written as an ordered pair, would be 0, negative 4. So I'm going to go ahead and plot that point on my graph. So right here in red, that's my y-intercept. Now, when your slope is positive, so if the slope is positive, then you're going to go up and to the right. And when the slope is negative, you go down and to the right. But you're always going to go to the right. So if it's a positive number, you go up and to the right, and if it's negative, you go down and to the right. So the slope for this one is positive 3 over 2. So it says from the y-intercept, because it's positive, we're going to move up 3, because that's the numerator. And then you're going to go to the right 2. So put your pencil on this y-intercept. Hop up 3 times. 1, 2, 3. And then go to the right 2 times. 1, 2. And put a point right there. So again, from this y-intercept, up 3. 1, 2, 3. Right 2. 1, 2. So put a point right there. Now, what is that point? That blue dot. Where is that?
That's 2.
Positive 2
-1.
and negative 1. So let's go ahead and put that point there. So that's my second point. So the first point we plotted was the y-intercept that was at 0, -4. And then we used our slope to get to the next point. Now from this point, we're going to repeat. From the point to -1, we're going to move what? Up 3. And right, how many? 2. So from this blue point, repeat. Go up 3. So 1, 2, 3. Right 2, 1, 2, and put a point. And then label that point. So from that blue dot, I went up 3. 1, 2, 3. Right 2, 1, 2, put a point. So now I have 3 points. Now what is the ordered pair for this last point that I graphed? 4, 2. So your last step is to draw a line that goes through those 3 points. So it will look something like this. And that is your graph. So we just talked about 3 different ways to graph a line. You can make a table, you can find your x and y intercepts, or you can do slope-intercept form. Okay, so homework 5. I think we're on homework 5. So I'm gonna go ahead and put it up. Now, I cannot buy graph paper for 127 students. I just cannot do that. Homework 5 is 10 questions. It needs to be on graph paper, okay, to get full credit. If you don't do it on graph paper, I'm just taking off 5 points. Now, for this first assignment, I did make copies, and I made 1 page per student. However, in the future, I would recommend that you just buy some graph paper, okay? So go ahead. I'm going to pass out some graph paper. Use this time to get started on your homework.